That was my big producerial feat was getting Hormel to hear us out so that we could pitch a movie where Mr. Peanut is the leader of the robot rebellion and a war hero, and a symbol for peace.
My first question for you is just, there have been a lot of, robots and fictional movies and shows. So in approaching how they were going to look in this movie, what were some of your directives or guidelines on top of obviously the book the movie is based on?
It's a great question. Yeah, the inspiration certainly comes from the illustrative novel by Simon Stålenhag, and so we have this conceit of service robots that sort of paved the pathway for visual exploration that would fit within those parameters. We also were existing within an alternate 1990s, so there were more parameters that sort of helped to guide us there. It was really important to bring on Dennis Gassner very early, along with his team, so that he could begin a visual exploration of what these robots could look like while we were developing the script, so that both could inform each other. The visual exploration informed the writing and vice versa with the writing and the visuals.
How many of the robots were practical versus entirely VFX?
They're all entirely VFX. It's an incredible feat when you look at it. The number of technicians and artisans who came together to execute on something that I believe has never been done at this scale before is super thrilling and creatively, I think, very exciting to see for audiences. We used performance actors on set with our human actors, Millie and Chris and Stanley, etc. And then those performance actors also did some motion capture for us as well. And then we layered in the incredible voice talents of our voice actors on top of it. And, if you've seen the film, you know that the cast is quite spectacular
Yep.
in terms of the range of, exciting talents that came together on this one. And it was a great process to witness. It was a long process because you're virtually animating half the movie after it's been shot. So we did a practical approach while shooting, with Millie and Chris and Key and Stanley and others. But then we had a very long post-production period where we animated the rest of the characters in the film. And there are more robot characters in this film than human characters. And so that was a really fantastic process to witness. And I think the outcome is really special.
There's some famous robots, kind of mascots used in the movie, such as, Mr. Peanut.
Yes.
Uh, what was the process of getting those approvals? Was there ever any pushback or?
That was my big producerial feat was getting Hormel to hear us out so that we could pitch a movie where Mr. Peanut is the leader of the robot rebellion and a war hero, and a symbol for peace. And, once we walked them through the creative, they were really great champions of everything that we were doing. But, as you mentioned earlier, we're dealing with such a specific world, such a specific approach to the robots. It felt so important to us that Mr. Peanut be the character that we intended for him to be. We even did a very brief exploration of other potential, brand mascots that have the same level of nostalgia. Nothing quite worked in the way that Mr. Peanut does. And then to have Woody Harrelson come along and voice him was just the cherry on top.
I'm curious, can you share what maybe some of the other ideas for mascots that didn't make it into the movie were?
I mean, it was a fun trip down memory lane, that's for sure. It was a lot of us in the writers' room, just pitching out old mascots that we remember fondly from our youth. So, I'll give you one, which was Mr. Kool-Aid.
Oh, that would have been a lot of fun. That would have been
Yeah.
very interesting. So as you mentioned, the cast of the movie is stacked. When it came to casting everyone, who were kind of some of the first to come on board and fit in perfectly? And then who was maybe that last piece that you guys were able to slide in and go, okay, now the movie is complete. We got this last person.
It's interesting, we were partnered up with both Chris and Millie very early on. And so that was always part of the core vision for the film. The characters were really written, with them as inspiration. And so it was great to have that compass from the start. So those would be the first two that I would cite. I think, it's such a large cast, particularly because we have so many voice actors that working with Sarah Finn and her team, there were a lot of delightful surprises that came along. We were so excited, by each of the folks who came on board and really helped to continue evolving the creative exploration of the robot that they were voicing. You have Brian Cox and you have Jenny Slate, you have Hank Azaria doing a couple of robots. So that was a really fun process. But I would say, having Stanley come on as our villain was quite an exciting moment. We had just worked with him on Citadel, and we had such a fantastic experience with him. He's just he's such an elegant pro and very like-minded and loves these big worlds and the tone that we were swimming in. So seeing him come on as a villain was quite fun. But one expected twist for us was having Key come on to play his character, which was originally written as a female character, and we had a scheduling conflict, and so we ended up pursuing Key for the role, and it worked out just perfectly, and we're so happy. So it was really great to team up with him again after Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Everyone did great. I think, yeah, the cast really was kind of perfect throughout. So,
Yeah, it's
um, I wanted to actually talk about, so Chris Pratt has a very unique look in this movie.
he does.
And it's even joked about in the film. You have a scissor bot who's desperate to give him a cut. What were the conversations like? But like, all right, we're gonna make Chris Pratt look like this.
It was a fun conversation, that's for sure. We had a great vision board. There were a lot of references to Bruce Springsteen, which is a favorite of many of us on the core creative team. But Chris honestly had a lot to do with it as well. He took a lot of inspiration from his own youth, and he specifically modeled the character after a neighbor that he grew up next to, and he sort of always idolized from afar, watching him out the window in the backyard, and he had this sort of heavy metal bent to him. And Chris talks about even finding his physicality in the way that he walks through that gentleman that he knew in his youth. So that's a lot of fun. I think he once joked that he genuinely thought his neighbor was it Eddie Van Halen? I can't remember, but he thought that he was one of the greats, from back then, and was disillusioned to realize that it wasn't him.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Now, I have an unrelated question for you that I wanted to ask. AGBO has become kind of the first ever studio to co-produce an Avengers movie alongside Marvel Studios, kind of outside Joe, Anthony, and Steven, who are working on writing and directing. How involved has AGBO been in the movie's development and production, and how do you guys, balance your own work and all the other projects you're doing alongside, what Marvel Studios requires on such a massive production?
Yeah, it's a really exciting full circle moment, to have Agbo begin out of the experience Anthony and Joe had across 10 years at Marvel and taking the lessons that they learned there, from their incredible partners there, in starting this company, and then to have had, the last 8 years at this company, building our own processes on top of those lessons and formulating our own special sauce when it comes to standing up these larger, substantial worlds that can traverse different genres and resonate with a global audience. So we've developed, processes together that really require the core team that Anthony and Joe have surrounded themselves with at AGBO, and so we've become part and parcel, to their process and providing the resources and feedback that they need. And so the fact that Marvel was generous enough to sort of welcome the larger company into the fold alongside them is a real privilege, and we couldn't be more thrilled. We have nothing but the utmost admiration for all of our partners there, from Kevin and Lou and all the way around. So it's been exciting. And in terms of how we balance it, we're major multitaskers. I think because we specialize in universe storytelling, we innately have to understand how to walk and chew gum at the same time. And so it's a lot, and a lot of that falls, on my shoulders, just in terms of making sure the teams are prioritizing correctly and keeping the eye on the right balls at the right times. But it's a lot of fun, and every day is
Mhm.
different, and so that makes it even more fulfilling ultimately.
Yeah. Now, Electric State, I had to ask, Electric Skate 2, what are the odds? Have you guys brainstormed? Do we have maybe ideas where this story could go in the future?
I mean, it's definitely a sandbox I'd love to continue playing in. And I think that the mythology that has been crafted is one that supports a good deal of different stories that we could dream up. So I'm certainly open to the idea, but
Mhm.
I'm most excited to see how fans, connect it to this story here in the film.
AGBO has, been responsible for so many projects up until this point, but what would you say makes Electric State unique amongst, all of your other stuff?
That's a great question. I think that we've really focused, since our inception as a company on original IP that, is important to us to find original ideas and exciting, emerging voices or visionaries that will deliver them out into the world. And we did it, through Extraction, with Sam Hargrave. We did it on Everything Everywhere All at Once with the Daniels. And I think that when it comes to the Electric State, even though it has Anthony and Joe at the center of it, it does involve that core team of trusted collaborators that they've worked with all through their tenure at Marvel and throughout their time at AGBO. So that made it a real family experience, literally and metaphorically.
Hmm.
So that makes it unique and special in that regard. I also think that it's innovative. It is, a brand new world that I don't think audiences have ever seen something like this before. It's fresh, but it's also refreshing because it's a film that I can sit down and watch with my kids. And there are not many options outside of traditional animation to do that. And this film, I think, does a nice job of paying homage to the films that we loved growing up as fans of cinema, and it brings that sense of nostalgia from a cinematic perspective. It brings also a sense of nostalgia from a 90s perspective. And that's something fun and interesting, to share with the next generation uh, who didn't grow up during that time. So it's this like really weird balance of giving something that feels nostalgic yet is brand new and aspirational. And I think that that is something we've not done yet at AGBO. We've explored a lot of genres. We've put different genres together in interesting ways. We, have come up with interesting mythologies for alternate versions of our world or other worlds. But this particular film does all of those things in a completely new manner. And I know that I'm never supposed to say this because you love all of your children, but this one has always stuck out to me as being one of my favorite children.
Electric State is all about the ethical dilemmas of, robots and
Mhm.
AI versus human, and just generally their legitimacy as sentient beings in these sci-fi settings. How does Electric State aim to add to that conversation in fresh ways?
I think that it focuses on the human aspects of technology. Truly, at the core of the film, we're touching on how all of us may distance ourselves from each other. And sometimes we do that through technology, and sometimes we can even do it by shunning technology. And so I think that really at the end of the day, it's a film about human connection, even though it happens to be a world that is filled with non-humans. And I think most of the humanity in the film, ironically, stems from the robots themselves, which is a lovely sort of subversion. But I think that, yeah, I think that oftentimes when we see robots in films, particularly films that are leaning a bit more sci-fi than this film does, which has a great sense of adventure to it as well. Um, Usually robots mean doomsday or dark, dangerous things. And in our film, we're truly dealing with benevolent, lovable, unique robots who are here to teach humanity something, but also to learn lessons themselves that are equally important. And so the themes explored in this movie are quite universal and they're quite broad reaching. Again, I think this is something that will equally speak to myself, but also my kids when I sit and watch it with them.
Just remember, you mentioned Extraction earlier in the
Yeah.
conversation. That was Extraction 3 was announced in summer 2023. When can fans expect that to be a thing? When can we see it?
We're
We're all
working on
waiting.
it. We're working hard and we're excited. But
Yeah.
are in the meantime, we have just announced a green light for a series called Mercenary, which is part of the Extraction universe and starring Omar Sy. And we're thrilled about that one. It's an exciting opportunity to pursue a long form narrative that explores many of the same themes that the first two extractions touched on. You
Mhm.
know, we'll sort of come at a singular mission through multiple perspectives, and it's interesting to see how different mercenaries will have different allegiances and agendas, and will be forced to make certain decisions that may be helpful or harmful to others.
Yeah.
So we're super excited about that one. Omar is at the core of it. Glenn Mazzara is show running it, who's brilliant. And we start production in September.
Oh, well, I look forward to that. And also, again, thank you to talk about for talking to me about Electric State. I look forward to everyone else getting to see that movie. And I hope that it's the beginning of, maybe several installments in that fun world.
I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you so much for watching. It's been awesome to talk to you. And yeah, we're thrilled. I mean, we're very blessed to have done what we've done with Netflix, over the last several years, and we look forward to many more to come. So we have another film we're actually starting production on in 5 weeks with Netflix called The Whisper Man with Robert De Niro. So we've had
Nice.
a good run with our
Yeah.
partners at Netflix.
A good run that's still going. And
That's
it will
right. That's
probably be
right.
going for the foreseeable future, I'm sure.
That's right. Well, thank you so much.
All
It was
right.
really nice to meet you.
Thank you. Same. Until next
All right.
time.